G'day and welcome. So in this video we're going to be looking at this $50 trashed junkyard engine. It was scored from a Wolseley Car Club storage facility. No idea what it's like. We're just going to try and spend as little to $0 as we can to see if we can resurrect it and make it run on our half-finished engine stand. So all we're doing is, in this video, is pulling things off it to have a look, and in the next video we'll hear its voice. So I hope you enjoy. Rightio, this is a B series cylinder head from a 1500 engine. Now this was the one that was picked up from the chalk shed. The chalk shed was the Wolseley Car Club's storage facility. It was kind of a secret location, only for club members, and it was in a chicken farm, an abandoned chicken farm. And it was full of cars, it was full of everything to do with BMC and Wolseley vehicles, and it was just a brilliant Saturday. It really was. I used to very rarely miss it. Right, so this was the rusty head we sent away with the block and everything. I sent the block for the 1600 away, and in doing that I sent this head away because it was just covered in rust and muck, and they cleaned it, or at least they didn't finish cleaning it. Now this has a few problems, and when we turn it over, if you remember, this one had a the other cylinder head we got did have a valve missing, and I wanted this just for some spare parts. Now this might be difficult to see. I'm just going to try and zoom up. Now we have issues here. We've got an issue between you. I can't see it, but he's highlighted between those two orange lines. Here we can see a crack, or I can see it. We've got a crack going up there in that chamber. I hope you can see. Up there onto the surface, and then there's a pin being installed. And if we shine the torch in through the port, the base of the pin can be seen underneath, just under there. Can you see it? I hope you can. There's also evidence of a lot of water damage. The seat is absolutely knackered. All in this area. It's very, very rough. So we cannot do anything with this head. It is not worth doing anything with this head. It's not a good one. It's just a normal B series 1500cc head. Absolute trash. It's scrap metal. Now, in speaking to the engine builder, there's also something over here. I don't know if you can see in there. That could be casting flash in that port there, just down there. Can you see in there? Now, in speaking to the engine builder, he said the blocks are generally pretty good for cracks in these engines. They don't tend to crack that often, but cranks do, particularly non-balanced ones, non-harmonic balanced ones, the ones with just a pulley, which is pretty much all of them as far as I know, and the cylinder heads. That's not unusual. He's seen a lot of this. So it's a bit of a shame, but it was a scrap head that I picked up just to be able to pluck a valve out of and some springs for the other cylinder head. That's all it was ever intended for. This is a Wolseley 1500 engine, low compression, as on the engine number. We've got some busted plugs. We've got a tiny bit of oil, which is fine. We've got a non-secured distributor. But the kicker is, it turns freely, albeit with absolutely no compression. The ring gear is chewed out, which doesn't matter because I've got another one. If you look in that area there, the Bendix would have just been hammering against there, so that's knackered. You can change the ring gear, but I've got another flywheel, so it's not a big deal. It's a shabby old engine. There's no compression, it wouldn't start like that. Now the kicker with this, or the thing that worries me more, is that nobody has done anything to protect, particularly the inlet ports. They are full of debris and a mess. So you wouldn't fuel this up and start it in that condition. Given that we have no compression, we have to have a little bit of a look further. So if those ports were clean and we had compression, you would squirt a bit of oil down the cylinders, rotate it by hand a few times, and you put a manifold on it, and you could even kick it in the guts and see if it would run. But in the condition it's in now, we haven't got any hope of that. I guess the first thing we're going to do is just pop the rock cover off and just see what the valves are doing. There's no compression, so I'm tipping something is really gone awry. Maybe valves aren't closing. But there's no sign of seizing in the engine. It appears really good like that. Right, albeit messy, but it's okay. Well, let's turn him around and see what's going on. Because I've got a hunch I'm going to be pulling the head off this. Right now, I can't see anything. Except they're very tight, so they're probably not even closing properly. But it doesn't matter because we've got another. I can hear something going on in there, but certainly not enough. I think we pull it off. I really do. It would be fun to pull it apart. So we shall get some penetrating oil to help it along. Oh, I don't want to get this stuff everywhere. I'm just going to ooze it out over the threads. And whoops, take the thermostat housing off and have a look at all the Huntsmans in there. I'm kidding. Oh well, the first one's not giving me any problems. Gotta try and stay clean for work. It's a thermostat. Didn't even see it. Looking a wee bit Titanic in there. Right. Now sparky plugs are going to tell us an awful lot about the engine and the condition it's in at the moment. In other words, I'm looking for water. I don't think I'm going to see any in there because it rotates freely. But all the threads appear alright and it's coming off. Let's have a looky. See what these tell us. And I haven't cleaned around the plugs. Normally on an old engine you clean around, but I've got every intention of pulling it apart. That looks fine. My guess is valves are stuck. That looks like it's had moisture. Look at this guy. Torch, I want to have a look in there. That's good. That's that end. Right. Peering down there. It all looks good. There's just crusty, scaly nonsense on the pistons. But you know what? That is going to happen. So I think we'll take the valve train off and remove the head. Good thing about these is they're not that tight. Ooh, that one is binding. Normally, pardon me, the way it is when I start opening my big mouth, you find a couple of stubborn ones. Where are we? Down here now, aren't we? Rightio. Right, oh, there we go. Right. That's very bindy. That shaft is probably stuffed as well. Don't know. Oh, it's freeing up. This thing hasn't been running a long time. So it's been here for, oh, that one's seized. Oh, that one's seized. But we can probably mess with it. Okay, so the rear two aren't terribly good. And we want to number these, put them back into some sort of order. I'm wearing the mankiest gloves you can think of, and the head's ready to come off now. So I'm just going to put tape around these. We probably don't need to be honest, but I'm going to do it as a matter of practice and number these and take them out. I'm going to try and lock them together and pull the studs out. I think it's going to make removing the cylinder head a little bit easier. Some of them are coming out quite easily. Like this one. So we've got all of these. That one won't come out, and that one won't come out of the back. I haven't tried these two front yet, but it can't be more difficult to take it off. Head studs are great. Same with main studs, but head studs, if they go through a jacket, it's going to be a real problem, and these don't. I think these are all blown. Oh crap, what am I doing? These ones don't go through the jackets, I don't think. But some of them can be a real headache, and anyone who's ever taken the cylinder head off a 6-cylinder Jag will know exactly what I'm talking about, because they are just horrible. They used to put cam belts, old cam belts around the front and back, and use an engine crane to take the cylinder head off. It would lift the whole front of the car up. They're bloody awful things, but they're such a beautifully engineered engine. They're just horrible cars to work on. Jaguars. Right, well there's only one that's being stubborn, and it's at the back. I've got the last of this. This one was a little bit difficult, but not much really, considering what it could be like. There's a bit of rust on there. When you want to get these unlocked, the best way to do it is just to get it in a comfortable position and squeeze it together. Sometimes you've got to put the spanners around the wrong way, like that, and just, yeah, squeeze, and they come off. Like that, and you can just undo them. That way you're not going to hurt yourself. Right, so there's just this one at the back. I can't get it off. Not a big deal. I'll figure it out. In the meantime, I reckon if we get my ultra large handy dandy screw stick, then it should start to move. I haven't taken one of these off in a long time. Can we get under there? Oh, it's all loose anyway. Let's have a sticky. Oh dear me. What a build up of poo that is. Gosh. Right, let's have a look. Oh. Look at this. Lovely. I think we'll get the vacuum cleaner. Let's give it a bit of a schmicko cleanup. Let's try not to hit the camera. Tell you what, it's not as bad as I bloody thought. Hang on, let's get this really mangy rag. It's probably got fairly similar wear to... No, it's not as badly worn as the other one. It's in much better condition. I mean, I've just made it worse by using a dirty rag, but... There's a couple of water stains in there. But all things considered, it is not bad at all. Let me see if I can clean that deck up a little bit. Right, well this to me looks like a bit of a chicken dinner. There's, the bores have got marks in them. But they're actually, as far as ridge is concerned, there's a small one there. But that is something I would probably just re-ring if I was to do it up. And you know, there's a lot of rusty crap. I sprayed them with CRC. To allow the rust to stick to the bores and just keep wiping them until I get them sort of semi-clean. There's a lot of, there's a lot of marks. I mean, really, you would probably give it a going over before you put it in the car, but on the whole, I reckon that would tidy up with the home. It's 60, this would be 1957, 58, maybe 1959. This is old. This thing's ancient. So, for its age, it's magnificent. Now, it's standard deck, so you can see there's a 4, a 4, a 3, and a 3. So that's standard piston oversizers. It's low compression, So the other one, hopefully the other one blocks all right, because I'm putting flat top 1600 MGA Mark II pistons in. And so MGA camshaft, really doing the bottom up to MGA specs, but I didn't want to use this one for that. This is the engine I want to actually get going and I want to hear some noise and then just take it off the stand. But, on the whole, I mean, if you're going to pull an old engine apart, that's how you want it to look. It could be a heck of a lot worse. Right, the cylinder head. It's just old and crusty. The ports are what spooked me. Where's my torch? You can't run an engine with inlet ports like that. There's spider webs, there's bits of debris, all sorts of stuff in there. It's just old and crusty. that stands to do more damage in the long run. We've got a burnt out valve here, another one, look. There, that's knackered. Yeah, that head's not in good shape. I have definitely seen better. That valve is absolutely knackered. Can you see it? I'll move the camera in a moment. The inlet ones aren't too bad, from what I can see. These engines produce very little power. I think 50 horsepower or 48 horsepower or something. They don't produce much. So if you've got a cylinder down because of something like that, there's 30 horsepower plus less because the rest of the engine's worn and it's trying to run that cylinder. So you're probably only making 25 horsepower or so. And that would be significant in a car that didn't have an awful lot of power in the first place. And you need enough. You definitely need enough to be, keeping up with traffic. That valve there shags as well. This one here, that's starting to go. It's already burned. So there's going to be no compression. So this head's a mess. It's probably a rebuildable core. I don't know, but I'm not going to bother getting it crack tested and all that because I don't intend to use it. I think we'll just take its workings out and use one of the others. But it's not. Oh, there's another one that's gone. Look, that valve's gone. That valve's gone. That one's starting to go, and so is that. So this engine would have just had enough power to run. It would have had no power whatsoever. So that's not something I'm interested in pursuing. That's that exhaust valve. That exhaust valve. That one's very rough around the edges at the top there. And that really doesn't look too much better. So this is the head that came from the 1500 that looked in particularly bad shape. I thought it would be like the other in that it would have more cracks than a nudist beach, but I can't see anything. It might be a good rebuildable core. Whatever the case, I've taken the valves out because I'm going to pick the best of the valves I've got. I'm good for inlet valves, but this had two burnt out exhaust ones. Nice. And they're just knackered. The other two exhaust valves are, where are they? These two. They don't look much chop, really. But I am going to clean them up because the only other one I've got is that, and it's all pitted. So they need to be recut or replaced, actually. They need to be replaced. But you know what? It doesn't matter for now. I've made a tool for extracting the guides that fit in. That's probably 25 thousandths smaller than the diameter or the OD of the guide. So the idea is you put it in and just press it out. I knocked one out, but it flared the end of it, so I can't use it. But that's the idea. It'll actually just push the guide out. And I'll make another one from this scrap of brass hex. And that will, I haven't made it yet, that will fit. And so when we press the guides in, it will bottom out where the guide's at the right height. So I'll make the inside of it, whatever millimeters that is, off the bottom. So, roughly, I can't even see. I'll have to use a vernier with the thing on it to get in there. But yeah, I'll make it so that I can extract them and press them in, because whatever the case, that cracked head has very good guides in it. We shouldn't be reusing guides. We're not going to start the engine. It'll be alright. She'll be right, as they say. And then that cracked one can go straight in the rubbish, in the recycle, because it's no good to anyone. This one, on the other hand, might be, it might have some future use somewhere down the line. So, it's worth as a rebuildable core, and I don't know if it is cracked. I can't see anything wrong with it. It is worth hanging on to, or at least offering to somebody else that needs one. And if that's the case, of course, it would be free to good home. Right, here we are at the front of our little Wolseley 1500 engine. I've decided I'm going to give it a bit of a clean, scrape off some of that gunk. I don't think this thing's been used in such a long time. And you can see the oil and the grease and everything is just so dry. So that would clean up a peach. The only problem with doing this sort of thing, see, normally I would take that off and hydroblast it. But the problem is it's got the felt seal. It's got the old type seal in it. And I don't want to upset that. If it was a normal Owing seal one, yes, of course I would. So I've just got to clean up, give it a rudimentary clean. And I'm going to take the timing cover off. And the reason I'm doing that is because it's, I can't get in here very well, I'm not doing a very good job, am I? Is because the 1620 that we're doing at the moment is going to have a full MGA specification rebuild. And that's at the machine shop now. Now if it turns out the block's cracked, obviously we abandon ship because I'm not going to rebuild a cracked block. So I'm waiting to hear back about that one. But this one can certainly be the beneficiary of its timing chain and tensioner, because that was particularly good on the 1600. And of course, if all goes well with that and it's not cracked, I'm buying all heavy duty stuff for it. I've undone the nut. The best way to do this is, I tried with a rattle gun and it didn't work. So I jumped on that with a shifter on it, an 18-inch shifter, and that should come off. And yeah, it just came straight off. There's another reason I'm doing this, and that is to do with the fact that this engine is not run forever and a day. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to, the problem is it doesn't run, all the galleries will be dry, and so I'm going to take the timing chain off and I'm going to prime the lubrication system using the camshaft. I'm just going to spin the camshaft and get all the oil around the engine before spinning the rotating assembly. That's the idea. And so that was one of the main reasons that I wanted to take this off, as well as just being curious and having a sticky on it, because let's face it, that's what I do. And it gives me a chance to sort of do it that way, which I believe is better. Now in a V8, which is what I'm used to doing in the Aussie V8s and the American ones, that's all 7/16. Where's the other half inch? There it is. You can just take the distributor out and spin the oil shaft. But these have a jack shaft going from the camshaft across to the oil pump. And the idea, I can't get to the other side of the jack shaft, but I can get to the cam. And so that's how we're going to do it. We'll charge up the oil filter, we'll put a new filter on it. Oh crap, I didn't need to do that one. That's not necessary. Hang on, I'm talking too much. Look how crusty it is. Gee whiz, it's crazy. And it's all dry. Look how dry it is. Alright, so I went into work, made a couple of tools up. I've made a cylinder head up for this out of two fairly knackered ones. But hopefully I've got a head that's going to work well, which I think it will for what we're going to do. We're not going to do anything really difficult. I clean up around there, you can see the housing for the seal. That's your old style, and there's ways to do these. Oh, I just got dirt in there. I don't know it. There's guys at the club that know how to pack them and to get them into A1 condition, but I don't. I haven't got a clue. Hopefully I can use the gasket again, just throw some Permatex at it. Alright, so everything's off. Whoops, that's off too. Let's, oh gee whiz. Now as a side note, one of my daughters bought an MGB. No, she didn't. She bought an MGZS, I think the new one. That's very slack. That's nowhere near as good as the one that we've got. Pop that slinger off. And yeah, the timing chain on it is like a bracelet. It's tiny, whereas this is nice, thick double row roller, but it's not a patch on the one we took off the 1600. So I'm just going to pop that off. I'll rotate that because there's a tongue on it, or a tab on it, which is there. Where's my hammer? Rightio. Camera might be in the way if I hit you. It wasn't intentional. So I'll just push that down the rest of the way. We'll get our zap gun. Just loosen that a bit. Block your ears. There we go. Nice and loose. Right. Let's take that off and that off. a large wedge goes toward the top. This thing looks like it might have some chewing done to it, so that doesn't matter because the other one was virtually undamaged. But as I said, I'm going to get a heavy duty one. They're a little bit dearer than a standard one for the 1600, as well as a heavy duty tough throated rocker shaft, because that one's stuffed on that engine. So let me just see if I can get that off. Yeah, that's chewed up. That's really chewed up. So that's rubbish. Alright. We don't care about this because it's trash. And there's a plate there too. There we go. Right. Now we're going to do our camshaft. Take that lock off and jimmy it out. Can I squeeze that off? There. Yes, we sort of can. And take that off. We don't need the chain. We don't need that at all. But we do need the cam sprocket. So there's a keyway there. And our cam spins beautifully. It's a bit stiff, so there's a lot of, yeah, there'll be dried up oil and all sorts of nonsense in there. Right, it's time to pop the flywheel off. This one is knackered all through here. The ring gear's gone. So just bending these tabs back. This doesn't, I'm in my own light here. This one doesn't look like it's ever been off before. Yeah, that's the right side. I'll turn the sound down. Kind of jimmy it off in different spots. It'll relent, but they're just a bit, they can get a bit sticky. Just probably on that centre part there. You can see it's starting to come off now. And I'm just levering against the bolt at the top of the sandwich plate. Or end plate, it's not really a sandwich plate in these. There we go, it's coming. And this is another one. I don't need this part now. I've got a really good one. There we go, it's ready to come off now. And I'll show you that once I've taken this guy off. There we go. And that looks as fresh as you'd expect it to look. And we've got this really lovely flywheel up a Wolseley 1560 that I had years ago. I don't know if they've got a staggered bolt pattern or not. Oh, yeah, there we go, that fits. And I'm just going to do it up bit by bit. There's still wear on that, but it's not nearly as bad as the other one that was there. So I'm just going to tighten it down bit by bit. Just sort of wiggle it on straight. And then I'll put those tabs back on. But I'm not going to bend them. And that should spin true, which it does. Right, that was good. Sweet. Rightio. Hopefully there's no asbestos there. Right, so the only other thing which I'd love to do is pull the dizzy. It's all gummy, and that's what's on the bearings on the camshaft. That worries me a bit. Now, in here is a jack shaft. You can't take the cam out without obviously taking the other side covers off and then taking the lifters out, but that jack shaft has to come out. And it drives the oil pump, but not just that, it also drives the distributor, which is on an offset dog. I think it's offset. Yes, it is offset. This thing here. So I'm loath to take it out because I don't want to start taking the pan off and all that. I just wanted to take off some of the stuff which is to do with the serviceability of the engine. So for example, starting it's going to be easier with the ring gear that works. And you know, I don't want to turn the rotating assembly and just keep turning it on the starter motor until I get, you know, oil pressure. So that was the thing with that. But I think we'll drain the oil, which you don't need to see that because, I mean, draining the oil is nothing. And we'll leave it there. So in the next one, what we're going to do is going to stick it back together. We'll get oil pressure up by spinning the cam. We'll wait to see all the oil and all that sort of stuff. We'll put the timing chain and tensioner from the 1600 on because it's in really, really good condition, much better than what this was. I'll show you what I've done with the cylinder head. Right, sorry I'm banging on about cylinder heads, but when you're trying to get an old engine going, most of the issues are in the head. Now this is the spare head that I had that didn't have any valves in it. Still needs a little bit of a clean up, it's not too bad. What I've done is I took the cracked head and I took the guides out and I stuck them in here. Made a tool to extract them. There's one of the ones that came out of here, and these ones were really, really, really slack. There's a lot of movement in that. And if you look at these, now I've stuck these in, and you don't do second-hand bloody guides, that's ridiculous. But if I get a valve, it's got that nice pop, and they're dry. When you stick oil in, that's gonna, or lubricate them, they're gonna be fine. So I made a couple of tools out, or made a couple of tools up. This is an extractor that I made. I turned that down about 25 thousandths smaller than what the OD of the guide is. Where the hell I put it? I don't know where I put it. Here. So I knew I could punch it out without it getting caught. This was a pain. Now what I did is I got this was just a piece of spare brass out in the toolbox as a drift, and what I've done is I've stuck a pilot hole in it, then took it out to 12mm, but I couldn't find the boring bar, which I need for that to snugly fit over there. Set it up at 13mm depth so that I could just press these in all uniformly each, and they would rest against the casting of the head, and these would all be dead level. So I had to do it that way instead, and punch them in, or press them in, and then measure it with a ruler. But whatever the case, they're fine. I'm not worried about that. Now, the inlet valves are perfect, right? They're really good. There's minimal wear, and the seats are great. I haven't got a problem with those. The problem I've got are the exhaust valves are shagged, and really I need new valves. I don't know. I don't think I can do anything with those. I'm not sure. All I want to do is start it, but at the end of the day, if I can get this one so I can hold compression and start, that's all we need on this engine. It's such that as long as the core's okay, so basically this head will be perfect. If it needs to go into a car that's going on the road, obviously you would put new seats, hardened exhaust seats, and new valves, exhaust valves in. They're only about 60 bucks, I think, for a set. They're not dear, but I didn't want to do it on this engine. I didn't mind doing the guides. I didn't put new ones in. I didn't mind reusing the guides because that meant I could throw that other head out. It was cracked. It was just no good to anyone. So this one's going on the engine. The one that came off the engine, I've taken the valves out and I've picked all the good ones, or at least all the good inlet ones that I can use. So that means we'll leave it here for now. So in the next video, what we're going to do is I'll lap all these in, get that head assembled. I've got a gasket set for it. This was very, very, very cheap, very reasonable. We've got the valve stem seals in there, all that sort of stuff. A copper gasket, all that sort of other business, and that was extremely reasonable. I've also bought a distributor clamp because I haven't got one between this and the 1600, and a set of studs. Now again, really reasonable stuff to buy, and of course that can be taken off again and reused on the 1600 when we do that. So there's one more video on this little $50 engine. That's when we see it running, and then we'll return to finish off the engine stand. Now, I don't want to get that dirty. Here's a spoiler on the engine stand. We've got Jarrah, we've got beech, and we've got some pine strapping, and we'll paint that and we'll do a nice high gloss on that. Stick that on and we're good to go. So on that note, I'll say thanks very much for watching. Enjoy a classic and I'll see you soon. What do you reckon? Shit. Jesus.